Any minute now, President Trump will be leaving the White House.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, Ravi, go ahead. We can begin now.
Yes. Okay. A very warm namaste to everyone. We welcome you to today's webinar on data visualization organized by the Sri Lanka Evaluation Association and EvalYouth Asia. I'm Surbhi Seth from India, and I can just give you a brief background about myself. I'm the moderator for today's webinar. I am a young evaluator with the Government of India. I've worked with the Development Monitoring and Evaluation Office at APEA and currently with the India Trade Promotion Organization with Ministry of Commerce. And I'm also a member of EvalYouth Asia. Opening remarks, we're very, very happy that Dr. Soma De Silva has joined us. She is the former regional advisor for UNICEF South Asia region and the former president of International Organization for Cooperation and Evaluation. She is also the former president and founding member of Sri Lanka Evaluation Association. Welcome, Dr. Soma. We're so happy that you could join us. Please begin with your opening remarks.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good evening to all. It's a great pleasure to say a few words as opening remarks at this important occasion. This is an important occasion because it is for empowering young and emerging evaluators to come to the forefront. So first, I congratulate the young evaluators who are co-leading this event. I also congratulate the organizers, SLEva EvalYouth Asia, APEA, Evaluation Community of India, and the Center for Evaluation of the University of Sri Jayewardenepura, who are regionalizing global agendas like Eval for Action. Data visualization, this is the theme of today's discussion. It is very relevant to evaluation. It is a powerful tool for communicating evaluation. It cannot be missing in an evaluator's toolkit. So, thank you, Sawsan Al-Zatari, for doing this webinar today on data visualization. Sawsan is a passionate advocate for data visualization. She's also a very dynamic and capable presenter. So, we look forward to your presentation, Sawsan. I would like to communicate a thought to young evaluators. The field of evaluation offers you an opportunity for your personal growth, professional growth. It also gives you an opportunity to make the difference that the world is waiting for so eagerly. What is that difference? It is that the governance becomes more people-focused, more effective, more efficient, and more sustainable in delivering equitable results for people. And quite importantly, that the governance becomes more transparent and accountable. It is evaluation that can provide knowledge for making that difference. Communicating evaluative knowledge to decision makers is therefore a critical responsibility of evaluators. Data visualization is a powerful tool for doing so. The discussion today is therefore potentially very influential. I would also like to suggest that young evaluators ask difficult questions. After decades of expansive efforts to promote evaluation, why is it that evaluators have not been able to help governments to effectively integrate evaluation into administrative functions? Why is there no evaluation teaching at tertiary level in our part of the world? Unless governments accept evaluation, there is no demand for it. Until there are steady streams of graduates in evaluation, there is no supply of evaluation professionals. So until and unless these two conditions are met, evaluation might be confined to civil society as something good to do. So I would like to encourage you, young and emerging evaluators, to be academically qualified, well qualified, and be equipped with many tools to support governments adapt evaluation for better governance. I wish you a great event today, which will be another step towards developing competencies to communicate effectively through data visualization and using that competency to inform the policymakers and motivate them to act in the best interest of people. So I wish you a very successful event today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Soma. Very, very wise words and very well put, especially about the need for sustainable, equitable, transparent and accountable governance. And also thank you for encouraging us. Before I move forward, I'd like to request all participants to keep their audios unmuted throughout the presentation. For any questions that you have, you can post them either in the comments section or you can bring them up towards the end of the session. We have 25 minutes, more than 25 minutes reserved for a question, answer, and interactive session. And even between the presentation, the speaker for today, the wonderful speaker for today, Sawsan, is going to, if there is a need, she's going to request you to unmute yourself or see the comments and make it more interactive. But we request you all to please keep your audios muted for all times during the presentation. And now moving on to introducing the speaker for today's webinar. Sawsan is the co-chair for EvalYouth MENA. She is the co-chair for EvalYouth Task Force 2. She's also a board member of Eval Jordan and the winner of the Regional Global Parliamentarians Forum for Evaluation Awards for 2018 at Eval Colombo 2018. We're very happy that Sawsan has taken the role of speaker today. So welcome, Sawsan, and please take over.
Thank you, Sarabi, and thank you, Dr. Suma, for the introduction. I'd like to thank also SLEvA and EvalYouth Asia for the opportunity and for inviting me today to present to all of you. I'm very passionate about data visualization, and hopefully today will be a very exciting webinar. So before we start, I'd like to encourage for this webinar to be an engaging one. And it can only be an engaging one if during the presentation today, you find that you have a question or it sparks an idea in your mind, to share it in the chat, as Sarabi said, because it will be a boring webinar if I just continue on talking. So let's all make it an engaging one. And in addition, I'd like to also note that most of the slides in this webinar are data visualization based. So I use data visualization concepts in all of the slides, if not most. So I encourage you also to take note of them, to screenshot whichever you like to screenshot, taking into consideration that you also don't screenshot my face in them. And also note for the purple notes at the bottom, these are the resources that I've used to create these slides. And these will be shared by the end of the webinar by Sarabi, hopefully. So let's start with the agenda. Our agenda for today is going to discuss the importance of data visualization in today's world. Why do we need, as evaluators, to use data evaluation? And if time permits, we're going to create a chart. Now, I'd also like to thank, before we jump in, everyone, all the participants who have joined us from all over the globe, and especially the participants who have answered the poll, because your answers have shaped a lot of the presentation today, and I tried to incorporate a lot of it into today's webinar. So thank you. So why is data visualization important? I want to start with this map. This map has been on social media recently, and if you take a look over here, this is Georgia, the state of Georgia, right? And in this location over here, we find that this area is in a red zone, which means that it has a lot of corona cases. Also this area and this area. And if we look at the key, dark blue is 1,600 to 2,900 corona cases, and dark red are 2,900 to 4,600 corona cases, right? So, I mean, it's a serious number. Versus if we look at the other map, we find that this guy over here has increased the number of cases, but this guy over here, they've decreased the number of cases. And we're like, oh, look, you know, maybe they did something well. Maybe they wore masks. Maybe, you know, there was a lockdown that helped them. We were not sure. But if we look initially, when we look at the map, we're like, okay, there's a good change, right? Here. But if we look at the key down here, we notice that over here, it starts with 2,300 cases to 3,700 cases, and then the dark red is 3,700 cases to 5,100 cases. And here, it's very different from this, right? There's a great increase. And, you know, when you're looking at this map initially, you're only going to notice the red because, you know, automatically red is the color that attracts you, but you're not going to look at the key. And after looking at the key right now, this begs us to ask the question of, is this data visualization or data manipulation? So this is a bad example, obviously. Let's go into another example. Right? So this is the top 5 counties with the greatest number of confirmed corona cases. If you look initially at the chart, you'll find that it starts, you know, high and then it goes down low. And it's a nice chart. You know, all the bars are, you know, sequential. But if you look at closely at the dates, you'll find that we start at 28th of April. And then the second date is 27th of April. And then we move on to 29th, right? And then if we go down the line, we see that it's 26th of April, and this doesn't make sense. So we realize that this chart is not in chronological order. This chart is being manipulated so that once we see it, we see that it looks like corona cases are decreasing in these 5 counties, but we need to pay a closer look in order to identify what the real information is being conveyed. So again, don't use this chart. But this shows us that data visualization is power, because data visualization is transferring your information into a visual display, into a clear visual display. And if you can do that, regardless of whether, you know, it's correct or not, then you've achieved that. But in today's world, you also need to be accountable, and you need to be certainly ethical about it, because you can't let these things pass, especially since a latest study found that humans have an attention span of 8 seconds. Can you believe that? 8 seconds. That's less than a goldfish. A goldfish has 9 seconds. So, you know, it's obvious. You grab your phone, you're scrolling, you're like, oh, look, you know, this is a nice chart. And then automatically your brain takes that chart in and that information and stores it, right? And you think, okay, this is the information. But you're only curious to know more about it if you click and you read and you think deeply about the chart. That's when you will find out if it's actually a good source, a bad source, you know, the right information, not the right information. And this happens a lot with reports, with books. If you write a report, right, they're going to ask you, where are the charts or where are the graphs? Because, you know, we want to market it on social media, or we want to show it in a PowerPoint presentation to our bosses. So just, you know, make it into a nice infographic or make it into a nice chart so that we would be able to quickly share it, because people like to look at things that are pretty, visually appealing, and also quickly absorb them rather than read. And let's admit it. I mean, if you go into a library and you open the books and you're interested, you flip through it. If it doesn't have the nice pictures, then maybe you will not be buying it, right? Instead of versus reading, you know, the table of contents and actually seeing what the book has. But we've all been there. So now you're going to ask us, as evaluators, why do we need data visualization, right? I mean, we work hard enough, so why do we need another aspect to worry about? And I'm glad you asked. I have my coffee too. I hope you have your coffee. As evaluators, we're bombarded and surrounded with visualization. From the theories of change that we make, to the graphs, to the charts, to the reports, to the presentations, it's all there. And we need to be careful about how to translate our findings into data visualization elements, because at the end of the day, we want to create reports that are read by people from all over the world, not just the project managers who care to see, you know, what we wrote about them in the reports. So the idea is, rather than writing very long reports, we want to make them absorbed by people, and so we need to use data visualization. And let's take a few examples. This is a theory of change, right? If you see this theory of change, I don't know, can you guys see the mouse? Can you see the, all right, or maybe if
Yes,
I do this.
yes, we can see.
All right.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, you can see. Thank you. So over here with this theory of change, we don't know where to look, right? This is very heavy visualization. We don't know whether to look at the yellow circles, at the green boxes. There's a star here, but we don't know what that is. Initially, this could be the best theory of change ever, but because of the heavy visualization, we're not sure what to focus on. And then you've got thick arrows and thin arrows. And by the way, a lot of evaluators use arrows to indicate causation, which they need to be very careful about, because sometimes if an intervention A is followed by an outcome, that doesn't mean necessarily, with an arrow connecting them, that this arrow means causation, right? We all know this as evaluators. Versus if we look at this theory of change, right? It's very clean, minimal colors, you know where everything is going. There are arrows that are clear. There's even an indication of what the length and the weight of the arrows are. There's an explanation. There's even a reference for the evaluation questions, so that later on down the line, when you want to answer the evaluation questions, you know where to look for. So this is a very good example of a good visual representation for a theory of change. And the same goes for charts, right? We find these charts that say, oh, you know, the program was a great success because most of the beneficiaries answered that it exceeds expectations and that it's excellent, right? But data visualization is very keen on representing data that is missing and that is basically wrong. So for example, this Likert scale doesn't even have the option of for the beneficiaries to say that they had a bad experience or that the project was not good. And I kid you not, I saw this once at a report and I thought, oh my God, this is not a project report, this is a project brochure, because the beneficiaries didn't even have the chance to say, you know, this project did not exceed my expectations or it was not very good. But data visualization can hide this very easily. And this is why we need to be careful in using data visualization. But most importantly, we need to be aware of everything that surrounds us. As evaluators, we can't just be limited to, you know, evaluation and or doing monitoring or, you know, just that. As, you know, Blue Marble evaluation and Michael Quinn-Patton, which I'm sure I don't need to, you know, talk about. He encourages us to be multidisciplinary and to think with a blue marble evaluation mindset, to zoom in and zoom out of the globe, to look at the micro, the macro, and use system thinking beyond borders, beyond perspectives that are, you know, part of the limiting factors that as evaluators, we usually put ourselves into. So opening our minds, looking at different concepts and looking at different fields, and using evaluative thinking in order to analyze the data that we are using, not just for evaluations, but for everything around us in the world. And one place to start this, I encourage you, is the EvalYouth 4th evaluation conference that took place last year. This conference is 4 hours. It's very long, but it is worth it. In my opinion, it's one of the best conferences ever. I even skipped the gym to attend this. And it had, you know, evaluators from all over the world talking about important topics like Michael Quinn-Patton, like Khalil Bitar, who's also the EvalYouth chair. And Khalil also has a blog that you guys all should check out, because he talks about activism and evaluation, which I'm also going to be touching upon here. So, where should we start with data visualization? Okay, that's actually a good question. People usually go to Excel and they insert chart and they think, cool, now I have a visualization, right? Like this one. But visualization is both qualitative and quantitative, right? It encompasses everything from infographics to charts, to maps, to word clouds, to reports. And you can use tools like Excel, like Canva, like Flat Icon, like Infogram to develop all these resources, right? So as evaluators, we need to be very keen on what it is that we need to use in order to produce what it is that we want to produce to do justice to our findings. And if you are going to screenshot any slide during this webinar, it should be this. Because this, after this webinar, if you're very interested in these topics, you can Google all of these, and many of these platforms are free or are paid, or you can have like a free version, like for example, Tableau Public, I think is a free version, and others. Canva is free, but if you want more features, you have to pay. And from the poll, I recall that many have asked for platforms that could provide data visualization sources. So here it is. So how do you choose the best chart for your data? And I would also add for your audience. But before we move on, perhaps we can gather some questions. Does anybody have any questions that we can answer? Before okay. All right, so let's move on. So first thing you need to do is to understand your data, right? What does that mean? Is it quantitative? Is it qualitative? And to give you a basic example, is it survey results, or is it a case study, or focus group results, right? You need to know this, and you need to really know your data, right? Not just from the surface. And you need to understand your visualization. Also, is it quantitative? Is it qualitative? Because you cannot visualize, or let's put it this way, not all your findings can be visualized in the same way. You need to be accurate in order to reach your audience. So let's start with quantitative data. Usually we have the bar chart, which shows comparisons, the line chart, which shows pattern over time, and the scatter plot, which shows correlation. And if you're a quantitative person who likes economics and who likes numbers, most of you will probably know the scatter plot and have used it a lot because it shows correlations and regressions and other economical things. Obviously, I'm a qualitative person. And then we have the pie chart. Raise your hands or type R in the box if you still use a pie chart. I admit I have been using, or before I knew that the pie chart was not the best visualization tool, I used to use it, and I used to think like, oh my God, you know, I'm like the best at data visualization using my pie chart and all my information is clear, when in fact the pie chart is not the best tool to use. It's actually a bit frowned upon, and people try to avoid it because it doesn't provide you with clear information. The slices in the pie chart can be very easily manipulated, and your mind does not know how to compute the numbers on the pie chart slices. So it will think of them as, you know, equal or that sort of thing. That's why it's easier to have a bar chart where it's like rigid lines, and we'll get into that. But let me show you how it's so easy to manipulate a pie chart. So if you look at this one, this is from 2012, and if you type in 2000 presidential run in Google Images, you will get this easily. So the 63 looks a bit bigger than the 70 because of the 3D effect, but most importantly, if you add up all of this, it doesn't get to 100, and a pie chart always needs to add up to 100. So this is one way Fox News manipulated data, right? Or maybe they made it a mistake, I don't know. Another example is, this is from the Irish Times, and they asked this question of, should we let US troops land at Shannon en route to Iraq, right? This was back in 2007. No, with 67%, is smaller than the yes with 33%. So automatically, your brain will look at the bigger slice, right? And be like, oh, look, they say yes. But it wouldn't compute the content of the pie chart, and this is why it's so easy to manipulate pie charts. So obviously there's an agenda behind this chart. When people are saying no, but the pie chart representation is making the yes bigger, then you wonder, what's going on? Qualitatively, we have timelines, and these could be, you know, for table of contents, for reports, or for Gantt charts, for, you know, when you want to do a timeline of your project, or the funding for the project, the financial allocation. There's word clouds. Word clouds are like a bit old, but they can still be used when you do pre and post analysis. So if you ask your beneficiaries something in your pre, and then you do the same survey in the post, you can use a word cloud to show the differences. Maps, which have been, you know, floating around because of COVID, so many recently, especially the chloroplast maps, and the icons, which I've used extensively here. Tree maps are nice because they show, you know, an equal representation, which is in square, and you can easily calculate or compute the numbers on them. And they're nice because, you know, they're straight lines, so they're good for OCD people like me. Pictures, which we'll get to in a minute, and quotes, which we'll also get to, and how we can use them. So if you look at this picture, Greta Thunberg, this picture floated around also the internet very recently, and they cropped Vanessa Nakati from this picture, right? And Vanessa was very angry, like, why am I cropped? You know, what is going on? And you think, you know, with the current situation with Black Lives Matter and all the ongoing protests, that, you know, this is so unethical and, you know, just wrong to crop people out like that. So a picture really is worth 1,000 words. Finally, respect your data. And when you say respect your data, this means to show the information you want to show. Don't use your chart as the vessel to dump all the information or all your findings on to show information, right? Or to impress your boss. That's not the point of a chart. Remove clutter, like the idea from the first theory of change with the yellow circles and the green boxes. You don't want it to be so colorful and so with many shapes. It's not a party. And simplify your charts to one point only, and one point only. Try to do that. And finally, call for action, because this is your why. Why did you choose this piece of information to turn into a chart? Is it just to make it pretty, or is it because you have a point to convey? And this is where I, borrow Khalil's idea of activism. As evaluators, we are activists, and it's our job to ensure that our charts also and our reports are also activists. Because once we write the report or once we design the chart, we're off to a new project or we're off to a new job. But these documents remain, and it's important that they also sustain their findings and their points. Now, many of you in the poll have asked about the audience. How do we ensure that we present to the right audience? And the issue here, it's not about ensuring presenting to the right audience as much as it's how are you going to present it. Because at the end of the day, you're going to have to create a good data visualization, regardless of who your audience is. Because if you send it via email, you will not be there to explain it. So it needs to be self-explanatory. And once your audience receives it, they're going to interpret it in any way they can. So you need to make sure that your visualization is clear and it conveys the actual findings that you have. Versus if you're going to present it, you are there so you can explain it, so you can get away with a few things. But here I also advise not to risk it and to ensure that your visualization says everything that you want it to say in terms of presenting a clear finding. Because let's say you don't have time, or let's say, the meeting ran late and you only have 2 minutes to present your findings. And if you were trying to impress your bosses or your clients, and you create this, violin chart or some other fancy chart, and they sit there and they ask you, what is this chart? And then you end up explaining how to read the chart versus the actual findings of the chart. And here you've wasted their time and your time, rather than, just coming to the point and explaining the findings of your evaluations. Because at the end of the day, a good chart does not, or a good data visualization like this chart here, does not need explanation, right? For example, here, you highlight what you want to highlight. You mute what you don't want to mute using color, not overbearing with so many colors, and you spell it out in the titles, because this is where your summary is, where your call for action is, and you remove any noise from access to backgrounds to anything. So as I said, a good data visualization.
Remember?
So moving on, how do we choose which chart we want to choose for our findings, right? Did anyone pick that up? This is just a test for you guys. So what do you remember from the slide that I just showed? I want to see from the chat. Maybe you can type in the chat if you remember any of the elements that I just showed. The back, no, from the slide with the arrows, something about arrows, okay. Well, I'm gonna make it easier for you guys. First of all, you will not remember any of the elements here because this chart is overloaded with information. I mean, this slide is overloaded with information. And a good slide will only have 6 items per slide. Only 6 items. You heard me, like, seriously, only 6 items. Because, so this is how the slide should be, right? If it were for the first slide, it would be too much information. And here, I encourage you to check out Death by PowerPoint. Sarabi will share the link at the end of the webinar. It's a really nice video on YouTube, which shows you how to present presentations. All right, so here's the link for this, the how to choose the right chart. I encourage you all to check it out. And I encourage you all to also Google and search everything that we discussed here, because it's not enough just to check this webinar. I think it's even more important to go and, you know, do your own research, find your own path in visualization, check out what you like the most, and just, you know, learn more about it. So let's look at this. Let's say after, you know, the airport's open and everyone is allowed to travel, you are called to do an evaluation by one of the governments of tourism in one of the countries on, you know, hotels. Okay, so you do this, and the first try you do a chart, and you're like, okay, so we have the city hotel, and this is a little less the children. Okay, children are in orange, so they're just above 0. How many children is that? And then you look at the grand total, and you're like, okay, I don't know why I put that, but you know, maybe it was important at that time. This is not the best way to visualize your information. The best way to visualize your information would be to highlight what you want to highlight. So in this case, I highlighted the resort hotels, and mute what you don't want to, what you don't want your audience to first look at, which are the city hotels. I kept this axis here saying adults and children, but I removed the x-axis and I removed any backgrounds because I wanted to clear the noise. And then I spelled it out in the title with the call for action. I even added a quote from the study to highlight or triangulate my data so that it's both qualitative and quantitative. By the way, these are random numbers, so don't count them. I think these are, I believe these are random numbers. I inserted them myself. All right, let's say you also did an agricultural project where you planted trees, and the number of trees you planted at the intervention was this much, and after the intervention finished, this number of trees stayed, right, or lived on. You can keep it as a table. Sometimes it's good to keep things as they are. You don't need to visualize everything. If you want to say, give a number, just give that number. And if you want to use a table, use a table. Like, for example, if I were to use this table, I would just highlight what information I want to highlight in a different color and keep it, right? You don't need to use charts for everything. But because we're in a data visualization webinar, we have to use charts for everything. So the first thing that comes to our view is that, oh, look, the olive trees are doing very well, right? This is a line chart. So I just made the points bigger. I inserted the numbers at the points, removed any axis, Y or X. And it's easier right now because when you look from left to right, you're looking, oh, look, you know, so this is 95, and then it ended up to being just 90. So olive trees, you know, were prospering versus all the other trees. I used text boxes to enter, you know, interventions, to enter after the intervention, and use boxes to highlight what the tree line is. By the way, will be your best friend. I advise you them because they will, you know, be very helpful in minimizing all your information into something that is very clear and coherent for your audience to see. And of course, I spelled it out in the title. Now, for those who love pie charts, it's you can use them, but you have to just use them to portray one number, which in this case, for example, 70% of beneficiaries were unsatisfied with the program. You automatically know that a pie chart will add to 100. So just put the number you want to highlight, right? You don't need to put 30 because it's obvious. And that way you wouldn't lose your audience. And yeah, just be clear about it, make it a big number, and that's it. So any questions before we move on?
I had a question about the pie chart. I think some people in the chat also had the same question, that regarding the pie charts, isn't it possible to manipulate any, like mislabel any type of chart And
Yes.
is there something about the pie chart specifically, or could it also, you know, if people just labeled pie charts correctly, they could also be used effectively?
So the idea of the pie chart is that okay, let's start with this. Any chart can be manipulated, as you saw with the map, you know, with the key, as you saw with the bar chart with the legend. But the reason why pie charts are frowned upon, because let's say you want to insert, let me see, this kind of information into a pie chart, right? And you have all of these numbers, and once the slices are open, they become very small, and it's hard for you to label them, right? It's hard for you to put the numbers on there. It's hard for you to put the text boxes on there. And so you will need to use a legend. And then the legend will also use colors, right? And then as an audience, you will have to go back and forth between what does this legend say and how much is that number versus what this legend say and how much is that number, versus if you use a bar chart where it's easier for you to insert your data right on the bar chart, insert the colors, insert the labels, and then it's easier for you to see no matter how much. I don't want to encourage you to populate your bar chart a lot, but the reason why a pie chart isn't that cool is also because of, you know, the labeling and the legends and the number of. Now, for example, this one, sorry. So this pie chart, if it was divided into more, it would be very hard to read, right? Because then you would have to go back and forth.
Sawsan, I think you got frozen for a bit. We couldn't hear you.
Okay, so while we get Sawsan back online, hope everybody is having fun and learning a lot. And to make this webinar even more interactive, we will do a small fun poll. And we'll just post the link in the comments. And after hearing part of today's presentation and from your personal experience, what is the one word that comes to your mind when you think data visualization? We'll make a word cloud out of it. And I've shared the link to poll in the chat box. You may all please just click on the link to cast your poll, or you can go to www.menti.com and you can use the code mentioned in the chat box. And I'll share my screen and we can see what we all think in the next 2 minutes. And it's going to make a nice word cloud. Word cloud was also one of the techniques that Sawsan mentioned in her presentation. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
So as I was saying, we'll do a fun poll to see what everybody comes up with when we think of the word data visualization, and then we'll make a word cloud. Word cloud was also one of the techniques that Sawsan mentioned in her presentation. While we get Sawsan back online, let's all poll. So you can use the link mentioned in the chat box, or you can go to www.menti.com and you can use the code that I've mentioned. Either of the two ways you can poll. We'll keep the poll open for, say, the next 2 to 3 minutes, and then we'll see what a word cloud looks like. Or I'll share it live right now. And then we can see as it gets populated. There's so much of thoughts and excitement I see. There's clarity, colors, graph, charts, how to present data, exciting. There's word clouds, easy to understand, simple, clear, self-explanatory, data visualization. A lot of overlapping words also here. Wow, it just keeps growing. If you can see the screen, every time somebody gives an input, the word is added and the graph just adjusts itself. The word cloud, word graph adjusts itself to make way for the new words.
Sorry, I got disconnected.
I think Sawsan is back online.
Yeah, I could hear
Hello,
everybody,
Sawsan.
but I could hear everybody, but I couldn't type in or press any buttons. So, but it came at a very timely time with the Mentimeter, so that's excellent.
Yes, but please feel free to take over.
Did you finish with the Mentimeter? Oh, look at that! Isn't that
Yes,
cool?
there's so many. Yes. Every time somebody adds a word, I was just telling them that it's so easy to use, and every time somebody adds a word, the word cloud itself makes way for the new word, and it rearranges itself.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
All right. So apparently, people think that it's, you know, clarity, simple, charts, graphs is there. Okay, these are excellent additions. I love it. Thank you, everyone. Eye-catching. Okay, cool. Easy to understand. That's excellent. All right. Are you guys ready to make a chart?
Yes.
Okay. Can you see my screen? Let's see. Let's share it. Oh, Sarabi, since you're presenting, I need access.
Erica, can you hear me? I guess Erica is going to have to give access to Sawsan.
Yes,
Sarabi?
Sawsan, you already.
All right. Can you guys see my screen? I'm not sure. Is it there?
We can't. On my end, I can't.
No, not yet.
Okay, excellent. All right, so so remember the resorts and the hotels that we took a look at before? Yeah?
Sorry,
Are you guys
Sawsan,
still
I'll
with me?
stop you because nobody can see the screen sharing from your end.
To please keep typing all of your questions. There's so many wonderful questions and comments already about data manipulation and different sort of techniques that can be used, graphs, charts, histograms, sharing experiences from Sawsan, if she can share experiences about how data can be analyzed, and comparing how a pie chart versus a graph or a histogram does the job. And I think she has a lot of interesting Excel planned for our presentation as soon as she's back. So, but please feel free to keep posting your questions and we'll keep collating them and try to take as many up as we can.
everybody, but I couldn't click anything. So let's get to right into the share screen. Can you see my screen right now?
I can't see anything.
Okay, hold on just a second. We'll get there. Oh no. All right, share. It should work right now. Just give it a second. There. Can you everybody see it? All right. And sorry about the technical issue. This is the perks of living in a developing country. Internet access, electricity, sometimes water. All right, so let's get into it. Remember our hotel example? So these are random numbers that we have. Here we see that we have months, the city hotel, and the resort hotels. So when you see months and you see a timeline, what do you guys remember? Which chart do you think we should use, or which is the better option? Any ideas? Drum roll. A line chart, exactly. Okay, so we highlight this. And remember, the line chart shows patterns over time. And we click this. So we get initially this 2 lines, la la la, they look good, but you know, we can do better. So the first thing we do is we click on these axes, we remove them. We click on this axis, we remove it. And let's keep the months, right? But we click on the legend and we remove this. Let's keep the chart title. We're going to get there soon. But my question is, from this information, what do we want to highlight, right? Do we want to highlight the resort hotels, or do we want to highlight the city hotels? Since we highlighted last time the resort hotels, let's highlight the city hotels because look how great they're doing, right? And what you do is you click on this and you ask it to, you click on this and you say format data point, right? And oh, let's first format the lines. So here, you see this color, we say solid color, and we tell it to turn into, let's say, all of it gray. Let's click it. Or it's not clicking. Okay, so let's do this one first. Let's turn it into a dark gray, and let's turn this one into also a dark gray, right? So I have 2 dark grays, but we want to highlight this rise, right? So we want to highlight it, let's say, in orange. And there it is. We highlight it in orange. Do we want to also highlight that decrease? We could. At the end of the day, we're trying to make use of our information and our data, and we want to make it, we want to understand it, right? And then here we also add data label because we don't want to overload the chart with all the information that we need, right? We just want it to highlight exactly what we want. And over here also we highlight data label, and we also want to make it to look like, you know, we want to know how much is that rise. So we also want to highlight these. So we add data label. That way we see, oh, look, from 8% to 12% to 13%. Wow. And then 8% again, right? And here there's something that's very interesting. Why is this, you know, happening? So what we can do is we can add a shape, right? I want to make it clear, or a line, let's say. I want to make it clear. So let's put this line over here and move it so that it's right in this point. I want to make everything clear for my audience. And if I want to make this line deep, so I can check the weight, but I also want it not to be, you know, in the person's face, so I can also change the color. But let's copy and paste this from here, and then we can put it here. And that way we look at the months. What usually happens from July to August? What is it? You know, why are everybody, why does everybody move, you know, from July to August? Any ideas? Summer. Summer, and this is why resort hotels are doing their best, because, you know, it's summer period, everybody is traveling and they want to enjoy their times, right? But you know, when school starts in September, this is where the drop happens. Now you can insert a shape and you can color this in, but we don't want to overcrowd it. We just want the audience to see like, oh, look, this, you know, this space over here is important to look at, right? And then we can insert a text box from here and write resort hotels, right? And to make it even clearer, let's change the color to orange. So that way it's clear. Now, what should the title think, do you think? That probably our evaluation found that, let me just hold it. Summer attracts more visitors to resort hotels. And what could our action be? Could it be something like, you know, maybe resort hotels can sustain, so let me spell that right. Resort hotels can sustain their marketing, or, you know, other ideas. Perhaps, you know, your findings can give you more information. Let's make this a bit bigger. Perhaps also add a text box to indicate the year this was done. So let's say this was done in 2018, right? And then put it at the bottom. So you know how in cooking shows, they do the recipe and then they make sure that there's an already made plate to make sure that, you know, whatever happens, if the oven doesn't work or if it does work, that they have something ready. So this is the chart that was already made. This one, of course, has more elements because, you know, there's more time and I don't want to take more of your time, but you get the gist of it. So the idea is to play around with your chart to make sure that the information that you want to convey is there. So this one, just to make it bigger, I also included city hotels to make sure that there's a comparison. I only included the resort hotels numbers and made this darker, but also kept whatever I don't want to show different. Oh, I mean muted. So that's about it for the charts. Anyone have any questions? I think right now we can have the 20 minutes Q&A and comments if anybody has. I'll stop sharing.
Yes, so there are a lot of interesting questions.
Yes.
I can throw some right now and we can wait for more in the chat box. So people have asked you what the best data visualization tool is. And I personally feel there's no one best tool, but you can answer. And then they've asked about what determines the selection of graphs, pie charts, or histograms. That is, when do you, I think they mean when do you use which tool? When is which tool appropriate? And then also somebody's asked about good color combinations that can be used in presentations, because I think you touched upon that. And you can also tell us more about how important visual appeal is to a presentation? And then there are some more. You can answer these couple of questions and then I'll go.
Yeah, let's start with the first one, which was what are the best tools for data visualization, correct? So
yes,
the best tools for data visualization. So it depends on the person and it depends on the data. If you have big data, you can use, for example, Excel, or you can use Tableau or Power BI, but you need to make sure that you have Windows, for example, for Power BI. You can't download it on Mac. And Tableau, you have to pay for it because it's an annual subscription. So there's Tableau Public, but I think you need to share the information that you visualize. Excel is a good bet because once you insert all of your data into pivot tables, then you can play around with them and then you can visualize them in any way possible. And the idea is for you to first understand your data, as we had said before. Once you understand your data, you will know how to visualize it and you will know which tool will best suit you. Tableau is a good option, but to me, I prefer Excel because Excel is, first of all, available, it's free, and people are familiar with Excel, they know how to use it. So if, for example, you're working with a team, then you can just share the Excel file and things will be available, right? So you have to think in terms of accessibility versus just in terms of making the chart pretty. You can make any chart pretty. And this is what the example of creating the chart right now that happened, because the idea is not just to give in to what the computer gives you from options, it's how you manipulate the chart in order to make it look like what you want it to look like. I think the second question was, how do you make it, what was the second question? How do you know which chart to use?
Yes, how do you know which chart to use or which tool to use when?
That's actually a very good question. And Surabi, I think from the resources, I had a resource from the presentations, which was the one with the orange icons and how to use, it's this link here, which is Data Viz catalog. So it gives you a breakdown of all the charts that you can use, and it gives you a breakdown of what charts to use for when. And I advise you all to visit that link in order to identify which you are. But I also encourage you all to practice making charts. So for example, for me, the first time I did charts, I really didn't, know what I was doing. And I had to learn a lot, and I had to, practice a lot, and watch YouTube videos to see, how things are done, especially when you're using Excel or, Tableau. But the idea is to practice, because eventually you can use different charts to convey the same data, but there's only one chart that will actually show exactly what kind of findings you want to show. And this is on you to identify. So play around with it and see what is the best one for your findings. And one very important piece of information, if you want to do this research, do it before you write your report or before you do your presentation, because by the time you come to the presentation or your report, you really wouldn't have time to do all these visualizations, and you wouldn't be bothered to do them, and it will risk showing your information. What was the third question? Sorry.
Yes, the answer was spot on. So the third question was about good color combinations. Again, a very basic question, but yes, very important question.
That's actually a very important question. And I forgot to mention that when using color combinations, there's a website called colorbrewer2.com. The thing is, I can't click on Google Meetings, GoToMeeting anymore, and I don't want to click on it because I don't want it to disconnect.
I'm going to try and link that.
Yeah, colorbrewer2.com. And this is a cool website because it shows you color combinations. But most importantly, it shows you color combinations for those with color blindness. For example, I had a boss who was colorblind, and I really I tortured him when I did charts because, you know, he couldn't tell the differences of the colors. And now I'm thinking, like, why didn't I know better about, you know, using color combos for data visual elements in order to make it life easier for him. And the same goes for printing. If you're going to be printing a report and it's got all these colors and everything, you need to also be kind to the environment by not using, you know, all these colors. So Color Brewer will show you all the possible colors for printing and for or color combinations that you could use. Other questions or comments? I'd like to hear more. I mean, I'd like to, you know, have people done visualizations before, and if they did, you know, how would they go about them, and what's the first thing that they would do?
There's another very interesting one on somebody's requested you to share your experiences on how geospatial data can be used to present data in simplistic ways. And then there's one about asking about free data visualization. Lots of questions, in fact, about free online infographic tools, free data visualization tools. There are so many, I'm sure. Some of them we've linked, and I'll try to link more down below. But the question about your experiences on geospatial data being used to present.
Geospatial data is all right. So with geospatial data, you can use Tableau, but you have to insert a map, or you can use GIS. Back in the day when I was an urban planner, before making the switch to M&E, I used to use GIS a lot, right? Because you need the coordinates and you can easily visualize data. So I encourage you to check out GIS. I think it's paid, but I'm not sure if there's a free version or not. And it's important when you want to portray data on a map to make sure that you have, first of all, the right map, because you don't want to be portraying data that is not correct on a map that is also sensitive. So for example, like US maps, it's easy because, you know, everyone has it and the borders are clear. But if you come to other countries or other regions, it's probably more vague, or, you know, like, for example, let me just put it in an example because I work better with stories and examples. There was a map for the Australia fires, but the map of and how they spread, but the map itself that they used for Australia was not right. There were elements that were vague and there were elements that were not correct. So initially people, when they saw, they were like, oh my God. But then, you know, when they came closer to the map, they realized that, you know, the map is not right. So what I'm trying to say is you can easily visualize anything on a map, but you need to be careful on the coordinates that you use. And GIS uses coordinates. So I would encourage you to use that. And it's not so easy because it uses layers, and it, you know, it's not, I mean, it's not so difficult because I think it's pretty quick to learn. And there's a question also on the free platforms, right? So as I said, basic Excel for me, when I want to do an infograph or when I want to do a social media post, I use Canva. Canva is very good and it's for free. And there are many elements that are for free in it, or PictoChart. I know EvalYouth has a PictoChart account, and we use PictoChart as well. What else? There's also, I know about like platforms like Flourish, like Venngage, like and others that you can use to create charts. But I'm sensing here that everyone wants a platform that would remove the hassle of developing the visualization rather than actually doing the work. Because you can go into, for example, Tableau. Tableau has nice charts. You can press, you know, create chart, and it will. And it's a nice chart. But the idea is not to create a nice chart, but it's to actually go through the work to make this chart work for you. So there are all these platforms, but at the end of the day, if you don't do the work, then you will get back to square one. So Rabi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Am I audible too?
Yes.
Hello? I want to ask you a question.
Any other questions?
Yes, yes. There's a
Yes.
question. Hello? Okay, I need to know more explanation on how to choose the right charts in this visualization. The decision to make the right choice of a chart, visualize an information.
So Sawsan, the question that the gentleman is asking about which chart to use, you've already covered that. But in addition to that, there is also a question in the chat box on, is histogram only useful to represent continuous data, or can we also use it for discontinuous data? So maybe you can touch on that a little bit.
The histogram, so just a second. So by histogram, what do you mean by continuous data or not continuous data? Can you please explain your question more? Because there's a limit to how much you can put on a histogram, right? Like there's a limit on how much you can add, correct?
Right. So even I'm not sure, but I'm assuming that the question means that whenever there is discontinuity in data, suppose data points, 2 data points are, there's a lag. So there's 10 to 15, then there's 16 to 21, there's 22 to 30. I think that is discontinuous data. And for continuous, it would be 10 to 12, 12 to 14, 14 to, so the 12 is occurring.
So here we fall into the trap of missing data, right? And as an evaluator, here you ask yourself, do you want to portray the missing information or do you want to keep it? And this is where you also look into how do you portray the missing data? When you create the histogram, do you say, you know, there was a missing data here? Some people do that, like they would highlight, you know, this section was missing, versus drawing it all and making it look like it's okay when it's not okay, you know? And here we come with the data manipulation versus data visualization. Are you visualizing the missing information, or are you looking, are you just want to swipe it under the rug and make it look like, look, I have a perfect chart and my information is all correct and you cannot doubt me? Because let's be honest, at the end of the day, people will not be able to access your data sets. I mean, the reason why most of my information here was generated random numbers from Excel was also because I couldn't access good data sets without either paying for them or registering on websites, you know, or UN data sets sometimes are like very big and they don't defeat the purpose. I mean, they defeat the purpose. So, you know, I was forced to generate my own information, and also it's also like copyrighted, so that's good from my side. But it's the idea of hiding information in order to cover up a mishap is not something we encourage, neither as visual people or as evaluators. You need to spell out when, you know, something is not working, when something is missing, when there's a limitation, you know, that's fine. Yes. Actually, there was
both your comments and the question is very valid. Sorry, I was just saying how your comments as well as the question is very valid, especially in monitoring and evaluation. Yes. Should I move to the next question?
Can I just add something to Rabi? Yes. If I may add. You know, when we work, I mean, how many here work with NGOs or work, you know, with donors? And sometimes in front of donors, we want to show the best picture, like, oh, look at us, we're monitoring well, and we're doing excellent job, you know, so that they can like us. And donors right now in these days are very savvy about this. You know, they actually want the real information because, you know, 10 years ago, they realized that pumping money into projects that are not working is not sustainable. And you need to have the right information in order to develop the projects, in order to make them sustainable, and in order to make the beneficiaries find them useful. So when you do that through data visualization, it's important. I really urge you, if a project is not working, say it's not working, you know, but also in your recommendations, provide why it's not working and provide recommendations to make it work. It's okay to say something isn't working, but it's not okay to not also give solutions to that. And it's not okay to hide that it's not working by showing information that's good, just to, you know, please whoever it is you want to please. Other
Definitely
questions?
agree 100% on that observation.
Thank you.
Very important observation and very important question. So the next question is about giving some examples of qualitative data visualization. And then there is a question on data visualization for dashboards. And what are the do's and don'ts for dashboards, for data visualization on dashboards? So I think that is also a very important question.
Yeah, I didn't touch upon dashboards here, but I think they're a very important tool. Excel uses dashboards, and Tableau also uses dashboards. Power BI also uses dashboards. So the question is, your dashboard needs to tell a story, right? You need to, all your stories need to complete the dashboard elements. So it shouldn't be something like, this chart looks nice, so I'll put it. This map looks nice, so I'll put it. Here's a few quotes that could, you know, benefit this dashboard. No, your dashboard needs to be complete. And in order to do a dashboard, by the way, dashboards are super cool. I think next time we need to do a webinar on dashboards, because they actually fulfill everything that you've worked on, and they show everything, and they also explain. Now, the only pitfall of dashboards is that people usually, they go to a dashboard and they screenshot it, right? Or they save the picture, and then they're missing half the information. But once you click on dashboards, you get a lot of information, and you can spend hours just clicking on them. If you want, you can go to Twitter and hashtag Tableau Public, and you'll find gazillions of dashboards that are done by very cool people on dashboards, and, you know, just random data. There was even an SDG competition where people did dashboards on, or visualizations on SDGs. That was amazing, really. I should link that. But going back to the idea of dashboards, first of all, your dashboard needs to tell a story. So if you want to insert a map, the map needs to relate to your chart, or your bar chart, or your icons, or whatever it is you're using, and that needs to also relate to whatever other graph you want to represent. So they all need to tell the same story. For example, if you want to compare apples and oranges, you have to say, I'm comparing apples and oranges, but here's how they look like, and you tell their story. But dashboards are cooler if you want to compare apples, 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 apples in different formats, in different, you know, timelines, in different months, or whichever story you want to tell. And the most important thing is to not play too much around with your dashboards. Don't make it heavy. Dashboards can also be very visually loaded, and it's best to stick to like 3-4 charts the most, or visualizations. I keep saying charts, but they're visualizations, because you don't want your audience to be like, what's that, or what's that, what's that, how does this relate to that? You know, dashboards need to also be self-explanatory. And you need to also focus on your color, you need to focus on the size, you need to focus on all the elements that we discussed earlier in order to make your dashboard a very cool presentation. Because trust me, people will know when you are not telling the right story, when you are using elements just for the sake of color, or for the sake of, you know, look, they move. That's not the point of dashboards. They need to fulfill the story of your findings. Any more questions? Can we have a webinar on dashboard development? Yes, I would like that. Guys, yes, I'm so sorry. My GoToMeeting froze, and I didn't want to touch it before before for not to log off again. So that's why I couldn't see any of the comments, but now I'm seeing all these comments, so I'm loving this. Go on, Sarabi.
Somebody's also asked me to show the slide where you mentioned in the beginning that they should take the screenshot of. I'm not sure which slide that was. If you remember, maybe you can show that slide again.
Yeah,
Somebody's asked.
sure.
And then there is a question on any thoughts on Salesforce for data visualization. And then lots of comments before that about ethics and how ethical issues are very closely related with data visualization. And then, of course, everybody's asking us to do a webinar on dashboards.
So Salesforce, is that like Power BI? It's like, or is that like a cloud-based? Can someone explain to me what Salesforce is? Because I'm familiar, but I'm not familiar with all of them. So I think just doing a simple Google, oh yeah, it's like a dashboard. So, okay, so it's like Tableau, but I think it's for marketing, right? It's not for evaluators, is that correct? Because it says here, yeah, CRM platform, okay. So I've worked on CRM.
Especially useful, it seems, for small businesses, yeah.
It depends. I mean, it depends if you find it comfortable, if you like using it, then you can go ahead and use it. If it's affordable for you, if it fulfills all your data visualization needs, then go ahead and use it. I don't have any anything against it. I'm not sure. I've used it before. I've used the CRM, and the CRM I found was very rigid. It's very not user-friendly per se. And to be honest, and I had this conversation with a friend recently about, using platforms. The more systems you use, the more you don't log into them at all. So stick to whatever you find comfortable and usable for you and for your needs. If you find that you prefer to use more than one system because they fulfill your needs, that's fine. For example, I use Excel to create charts, but it's very hard for me to create charts on Canva. I use Canva to create social media content. And Sarabi, you said there was another question. I'm sorry, I missed that. After this one?
I think somebody asked you to show the slide which you said in the beginning was very important, and they should take a screenshot of.
I hope I could take a screenshot. Let me see if I can share it, because I don't want my GoToMeeting to freeze. I don't know what's happening with my laptop today.
No worries, we'll mention it when we share the presentation with them. We'll mention the slide on that, and of course we're sharing the presentation.
Yeah, that's actually better, so that I don't get disconnected again, because my GoToMeeting just unfroze. And what else was there? Was a third question?
No, then there were lots of comments about ethics in monitoring and evaluation, and then about dashboards. You already talked in detail about that.
Like, here, I want to ask you guys, as evaluators, are we passive people? Are we just, counting numbers, and we go to an evaluation and we evaluate, and then we get the paycheck, hopefully they pay us, hopefully, and then we just leave on to this next project? Or are we ethical activists who use evaluation to tell the stories of the beneficiaries who otherwise could not be told, right? Because lies, the ethics of it all. You want to be someone who's passive, or do you want to be someone who's active? And that's where ethics is. Now, I'm not saying that people who do consultancies and then move on to the next are unethical. Of course not. In fact, they're doing their job, and I think everyone does their best in order to do what they want to do. However, if you see something, it's like back in the day, when I used to ride the bus. I think this is a very bad example, but if you see something, you need to say something about it, right? If you see that there's data that's missing, or that beneficiaries' voices are not being heard, or there's an agenda being played, you need to voice it out. Like, I was part of an evaluation where when I entered the meeting room, I could automatically tell there was drama between the project manager and the M&E person and everybody, and they're all trying to make it look good, but it's obviously not. And everybody was asking me, you know, personal questions about the evaluation, not personal questions about me, but about the evaluation, in order to see which point of view will I take, right? And at the end of the day, you need to take the point of view that you think is the most ethical and the most objective, regardless of who the project manager is and regardless of who the team is, right? Because at the end of the day, you're an evaluator and you need to be objective and ethical. So yeah.
I think we've overshot the time, but it has been so much fun that I think even I lost track of time.
Oh, did we lose track? Oh,
should we take one more question before we close? Or so there's a question on, can two charts be used? Can you use two charts to emphasize the same finding? I'm guessing that's what it means. And is there a need to have the audience in mind in the choice of charts? I think definitely Sawsan's already mentioned how important it is to know who you're presenting for, even in a dashboard, the importance of having targeted data points and targeted charts and targeted type of data representation. And we'll definitely share the PPT with everybody.
Can I just want to, yeah. I know we don't have time, but just to answer the question about the two charts, I just want to mention this. Sometimes there are people who are against data visualization and they think, you know, what is this crap? It's like, I like my old pie chart and I like my old, you know, way of representing information, and they can't buy into the actual, you know, new trend or the simplicity of data visualization. Here, I advise you to use the old chart that they normally use and use the new chart that you visualized with all the clear elements and ask them to tell you the difference. And that's how you get people to buy in more into the data visualization concepts of being clear, showing one point only, etc. Once they see it with their own eyes, then perhaps, hopefully, they will be bought in. But yes, thank you, Sarabi. You can go ahead and conclude the webinar.
Yes, it has been so much fun and so much of learning, and everybody's appreciated your presentation so much. And for the closing remarks, I'll request Chamatkara to please give the closing remarks.
Yes, thanks, Surabhi. Actually, it was a very exciting webinar. We had more than 150 participants. Yeah. And it's my pleasure to deliver closing remarks on behalf of SLEvA and also EvalYouth Asia. This is the first webinar that jointly organized by SLEvA and EvalYouth Asia, and also the 9th webinar of SLEvA webinar series. So first of all, I would like to thank Sawsan for accepting our invitation to be the speaker. And it was very knowledgeable and interactive. We enjoyed it very well, and also Surabhi for being the moderator and for the excellent moderation during, especially during the technical issue that we and that Mentimeter part. It was very exciting. Thank you for suggesting it, and also Dr. Soma for sharing her valuable thoughts for us, and we were honored to have such useful thoughts from a senior person like you, Dr. Soma. And also I would like to thank EvalYouth for providing us the GoToMeeting platform to have the webinar, and EvalYouth Asia team for organizing and doing everything regarding the webinar. And also I would like to thank all the participants with us today, and interacting with the chat, questions, comments, and Mentimeter. So it was very nice to have you all here. So thank you very much. Thank you all who participated, and all the team members who helped who joined with us to make it success. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone, and have a great day. And thank you all for joining. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Good evening.
Everyone, thank you so much for joining.
Namaste to everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.